Look, the roster system was developed in the early days when there was a realization that, and maybe I'll take a few steps back. The services of consulting engineering companies before that roster system was on a relationship-based system. Now, in a new South Africa, with our constitution, which specifically has included Section 217 on procurement, does call for fair, transparent, competitive and cost-effective prescripts in procuring services in the public sector. So I believe then that the direct relationship-based appointments which used to take place, which in themselves might have been flawed, because you can well imagine how a buddy system can influence that, was put to pasture, and there was a need then to have a replacement system. The replacement that was implemented at the time was the development of a roster system. So companies had then submitted their details. They got onto a system which was recognized and acknowledged by, for instance, Public Works, who at the time still had sufficient technical capacity and competence to be able to discriminate between companies who are in the business of consulting engineering and simple tenderpreneurs who are not. That system worked very well, and I know of several companies who grew and have become very successful in the new South Africa, black owned, started from scratch and grew to be very large companies. Unfortunately, over time, I think that there were some negative elements that crept into the implementation and the roster system and how it was then implemented, which then put to pasture that system and a stronger implementation of the tendering system. Now, the tendering system in itself is not necessarily an evil. For tendering systems to work, you need to ask yourself whether you are sure of what exactly you're purchasing, and you are sure of more or less what it should cost you. Because you need to make that correlation, because that must inform your decision on who you appoint. If you haven't got that expertise and your scope is not decently defined, you sit with a double-edged problem. The one side of the problem is that you may commission somebody who's overly expensive, so you perceive them to be. But if you haven't defined what you're buying, all they're doing is they're pricing risk into it, the unknown. The flip side is someone may respond at very low cost with a lot of fine print where they've qualified their bid. So you may run the risk of appointing them, and when you unpack it and you start really getting into the detail, you may find that they were probably a most expensive tenderer, and that kind of work's not being done in the tendering process. When tendering works best, we believe, is in a situation where you have a concession process and where at least your outcome must be decently spelled out. If you're going to a straight consulting appointment, then your scope has to be absolutely defined, and you as a client need to know what it costs you so that you don't compromise the quality of the service or the outcome that you may get.